Keith Olbermann said on social media that the network didn't have a Joy Reid problem. I guess it's the same way they didn't have a Keith Olbermann problem.
They certainly don't anymore.
Yeah, right.
What does that even mean? That they didn't have a Joy Reid problem? What does that mean? That she didn't kill anyone? I mean, no one watched her show. That is per se a problem.
The only thing that Joy Reid murdered was the American intellect as best as she could.
She's probably great for the therapy industry.
Renegade Online. I love this. Mark posted this today. I guess we'll kind of grift off into the Joy Reid thing because this is it's just too funny. And it's not even your birthday, Mark. And you
I know,
got
right?
this.
It feels like it. What an insane woman. She's one of the people that's key in this whole gaslighting thing. They have a lot of humans that can read the teleprompters and pour lies into other people. Man, I can't lie to somebody's face. I'd feel horrible about myself. And we have an entire professional class in the mainstream media who have perfected the art. I'd love to see Rachel Maddow go next, but I'll tell you, you know, there was an article New Republic did in, I think, September, and they accused us of colluding with the Trump campaign just because we passed them unfinished polls. But you can see on our website, we have an entire business around that. We have platinum subscriptions where people get unreleased polls, and we send them to the media all the time. I'd send them to Democrats too also. But then she went and slandered us in the mainstream media to try and have people basically discount the only pollster who was telling the truth in August and September. It was really wild. We were out there alone. We were the only little red circle in late August, early September, and that's when they ran this thing. So they have absolutely no moral scruples, and they'll do that, and good for her. Absolutely good for her. You love to see it.
When you have somebody like that constantly provides a wealth of comedy gold with some of the stupidest things possible, it's kind of, why wouldn't you use it, right? We're going to miss Joy Reid, but we have, thanks to a great write-up on foxnews.com today, has some of the best embedded in the article, clips of Joy Reid. Should we go through some of those now?
No, let's do that. Let's really lean into the moment.
Yeah, I think we should too. All right, let me switch over here and make sure I've got the right window up because this is just too much good fun. And I'm really hoping that wherever Joy winds up, even if she starts a show on Blue Sky Social or whatever the case is, I really hope whatever it is just pure. All right, let me bring this up. Let's go to the article here and get through this. Conservatives say good riddance to Joy Reid's MSNBC show as liberals slam the network shakeup. Former MSNBC host Keith Olbermann. Oh, I miss Keith.
Who better than to weigh in on what works?
I love that guy.
Yeah,
that guy's awesome.
just pure gold. I have no idea how Keith Olbermann has not blocked me on X yet. The absolute hell I've given him over the last couple of years when he randomly pops up. I'm so glad the short bus is still running in his neighborhood. Let's just say that. Keith Olbermann said on social media that the network didn't have a Joy Reid problem. I guess it's the same way they didn't have a Keith Olbermann problem.
They certainly don't anymore.
Yeah, right.
What does that even mean? That they didn't have a Joy Reid problem? What does that mean? That she didn't kill anyone? I mean, no one watched her show. That is per se a problem.
The only thing that Joy Reid murdered was the American intellect as best as she could.
She's probably great for the therapy industry.
Maybe so. Conservative commentators say good riddance to Joy Reid's show, The Readout, on Sunday after the network announced that they had canceled the far-left host's nightly program as liberals criticized the decision. Critics pointed to some viral clips of Reid, who have made the headlines for her attacks against Trump supporters and on the president himself. MSNBC canceled her show as part of a major shakeup at the network. And maybe, just maybe, because MSNBC, who is part of Comcast, that Comcast is currently in the process of spinning out MSNBC and several other linear broadcast channels, spinning them off of Comcast into their own new publicly traded entity, that Comcast shareholders, to be clear, will still own the majority of the shares for, I think, 70+ 90+%. It's mostly still going to be, they're still going to own most of it. Or maybe it had something to do with the fact that wasn't there some kind of lawsuit involving Comcast recently with Trump, or was that Paramount? What am I thinking of? But
Paramount got added to the CBS lawsuit, I think.
That's what it was. The CBS lawsuit is what I'm thinking of.
No, Paramount was added to CBS because Paramount owns CBS. Right. So they were added on it. That's by the way, folks, it's a small amount, $20 billion.
Right.
The legacy media is having a great time right now.
Oh yeah,
that's only like 10 Stacey Abrams kickbacks.
Exactly. The whole pot was $20 billion. Stacey only got $2 billion of it. So let's not give her too much hell. Reid's 7 p.m. Eastern program will be replaced by a show featuring Simone Sanders Townsend, a former spokesperson to Vice President Kamala Harris. Oh, God bless it. Alicia Menendez, an RNC chair turned MSNBC host, Michael Steele.
I told you.
Yep. I met Michael Steele once, probably 15 years ago now.
When you met him, did you think, now that's a TV host right there?
Yeah, no. This was back in the rise of Mitt Romney days.
The dog was still on the car, folks. The dog was still in the car.
Yeah. So, throwback, I love this. Throwback to when Joy Reid suggested that Trump surviving the shooting and going immediately to the RNC was exactly the same as Biden beating COVID. I don't know if this was on her show, but I see Jen Psaki there, who probably has the best named show in news, Inside Jen Psaki. I've never seen a more clever title than that, but hey, so let's take a listen here.
Question that I have on that. These two men are both elderly. Donald Trump is an elderly man who, for whatever reason, was given 9 seconds to take a iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. Weird situation. We'll figure that out one day. But his survival of that and bouncing.
It's so weird. It's a weird situation. It was weird.
Right back and going right to his convention is being conveyed in the media world as a sign of strength. This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should he be fine in a couple of days? Doesn't that convey exactly the same thing? That he's strong enough, older than Trump, to have gotten something that used to really be fatal to people his age. So if he does fine out of it and comes back and is able to do rallies, isn't that exactly the same?
Yeah. Jen Psaki's face, exactly when Jen even knows.
But it's an elderly man coming through out of it.
What a self-own.
When Jen Psaki even knows. Oh, no.
She has a point. Everybody should have been, wow, look at the 81-year-old. It's miraculous. He pulled through. She's right. That's what everybody should have been. It was probably touch and go there for a while.
I always felt bad for Biden because he had to walk up all those steps.
With re-election for not dying.
That's, Ron, you're exactly right.
He was qualified.
I always thought they should have given him an escalator. A presidential escalator that just took him up to the plane. It would have been so much easier than watching him fall upwards somehow.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I should have put this on full screen before, but you brought up a great point with this, with Jen's face. Let's watch.
People his age. So if he does fine out of it and comes back and is able to do.
even Psaki at this. For those of you who don't know, Jen Psaki was the former press secretary for Joe Biden. She is looking at this, and look, Jen Psaki, this woman on the screen, she was one of the people that absolutely gaslit America regarding Joe Biden's health, just like the whole administration did, just like was known for 4 years where this administration was constantly covering up for Joe Biden, constantly trying to hide things. They all knew this was the case. Psaki's got this look on her face right now. I wish she had just had a brain fart moment and just said whatever she was obviously desperately holding back from exploding out of her mouth at this moment. Because there was something coming out that mouth.
Rallies. Isn't that exactly the same? It's not exactly the same.
She doesn't know where to go with it. Yeah, she's like, well, what do we do?
Same. It's not the same incident.
Yeah. And Joy, she's looking at Joy like, will you please shut the hell up right now? Stop it.
Well, in that case, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Elderly man coming through out of an illness.
She's like, stop, Joy, stop.
Should.
She's it should. But I mean, she's got this look at her like they had to know at this point They had to know that that was not working for them. That this idea that, people were putting Biden's illness and so they didn't want to talk about the assassination attempt on Trump anymore because every time they did, it was helping Trump. And so the last thing they wanted to...
Then they ghosted it, right? So like you never saw the photos. If this had been any other president,
Yep.
If it would have been in every history book you'd ever seen, it would have been iconic. I mean, this is stuff on the level of seeing Washington cross the Delaware, right?
Oh, yeah.
They ghosted after 1 week. You couldn't find that image. You couldn't find the video anywhere except on conservative media. It was gone.
Yeah, they didn't want to talk about it again. Here's another Joy Reid moment. MSNBC has canceled Joy's show. Here she was in 2022. Saying that most Americans don't really care about inflation and don't even know what the word means. They'll never vote based on it. And does everybody notice the chyron beneath her right now? Paul Pelosi released from hospital. We'd like to go back and enjoy that story again. Just as a reminder, everybody can go Google that one.
Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it. The people I ever hear use the word inflation are journalists and economists, right?
The only people who ever talk about inflation in Joy Reid's world is journalists and economists. That's it. Nobody ever uses this word.
So that is not part of the normal lexicon of the way people talk.
People
so
who
it's
are paid
interesting that
seven
Republicans
figures
are
a
doing
year for failing MSNBC shows. Yes, it's true. It doesn't make a darn bit of difference to her. Eggs could quadruple in price every day and it wouldn't make a difference to her.
It's just so stupid, though. Like 45%, 50, 45%, something in there. They were alive. They were adults during the Carter administration. Like that's, in fact, probably 90% of her audience is my guess as well. It's all the old cat ladies sitting at home watching MSNBC, praying to the cult. They know what inflation is.
Well, that's what's funny is for you to believe what she's saying, you've got to think that when somebody said to you, well, during the Carter administration, they had historic levels of inflation. You've got to think that the person that you're speaking to has no idea what you're saying. And their inner monologue as they're watching anyone discuss that has to be, what the heck is inflation? What does that mean? What is this word? What is this strange foreign term that I've never heard before? Inflation. It is literally belief that the American populace is at idiot level. Baseline.
Valliant, what was the date on this?
This is from 2022.
July 25th, 2022. Are you paying more for your groceries now than you were a year ago? 89% of American adults, yes. 6% no.
There you have it. But hey, it's Joy Reid, and for some reason, she doesn't have a job anymore.
Yeah, Americans are definitely too stupid to know that they're paying twice as much for a gallon of milk. They had to hear it on the news. They had to hear about inflation.
Or Mark, in the case of her audience, as was pointed out before, maybe her audience noticed that bag of kitty litter went from $10 to $25. Maybe that's how they figured it out.
Yeah.
Something they don't normally do, right? Which is not.
No, these affluent liberals, they feed their cats the stuff in the cans, It's like,
They're vegan cats, Mark. That's why their cats are
they get the
always
good stuff.
depressed and to the edge of death. Yeah. Vegan kitties.
Right, not use just common English to sort of do on their campaigns like they're doing with crime. But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Yeah. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it, including on TV, including in newspapers. They've been taught this word.
How condescending.
They sort of wrap this word.
The level of condescension here.
Ron, if you didn't teach the ignorant Neanderthals what inflation is, they would have never noticed that McDonald's dropped the dollar menu. They couldn't have articulated it.
The reason that happened, of course, is because the vicious right-wing media is teaching people about inflation in order to harm Joe Biden's candidacy or Kamala Harris's candidacy because they are in the pocket of Donald Trump.
It's so fun to watch this kind of stuff. I mean, how somebody can be either this arrogant or this stupid as to think that Americans, they don't know what inflation is. They've never used this word. They've never heard of this word until, like you said, until Donald Trump started gaslighting people with this term.
She's out of the school of Kim Jong-un, man. I'm telling you. She would go to North Korea and ban the word poverty so that you never have an idea of what's really going on. That's the level of just vitriol she has for her fellow human beings.
Whatever it is that they really want to vote, the reasons they really want to vote.
Yeah, it's a trick. It's people, they want to vote for other things. They don't know what this inflation is, and they've been tricked. Here's another one.
And those other things are tampons in boys' locker rooms or bathrooms, boys in girls' sports, and all the other great things like changing statutes to be sex neutral so that words like father are replaced by inseminator, just
right.
That's really these are the core issues. And that anti-Trump media is just teaching stuff. These little people don't really need to know. They don't need that.
Right. The last thing that people like Joy Reid want are people actually educated on the Constitution, what rights really are versus privileges, or what's actually going on in government, what's actually going on in the media. This is another one. Former FCC chairman Ajit Pai, might be saying that wrong, I apologize, quipped, an unfortunate development for Joy Reid's viewer, singular. The readout is being canceled. An unfortunate development for Joy Reid's viewer. I'm sure that was not a typo, considering the host's insightful analysis on political topics.
I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice.
Yeah, I mean, that should have really just
Queen Latifah should have put it over the top. Right. Queen Latifah was it, baby. The equalizer.
I was in my mom's house, my 83-year-old mother's house in Boca Raton, and she's sitting there watching The View, and she wants to know, what's the story with Queen Latifah? What does Queen Latifah have to say about all this?
Oh, yeah. We were all sitting on the edge of our seats waiting to hear what Queen Latifah was going to do, because she's never endorsed anybody before, and she has the ability to move the political needle in this country. I can't do this anymore.
I remember walking the beaches of Daytona, Florida, when I was told that Donald J. Trump had received a near-death encounter with a whizzing by metallic object that pierced his ear. And then someone else on the beach ran up to me and said, but Queen Latifah just endorsed Kamala.
Yes. Yes. This is a short one. Let me play through this again. I don't know what came after it, but I did. Rachel Maddow's face. Remember, this is when it's looking like for the night that this is done, right? This is election night. Trump's running away with this. The Republicans are keeping senatorial control. There is a lot of Xanax being passed around underneath this news desk right now.
I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never.
It was flawless. $1.5 billion spent on this campaign. It was flawless. They just lost. That's all.
Endorses anyone.
Disappeared for.
Go ahead, Mark.
She disappeared for 3 weeks after the DNC. Just was like totally nowhere to be found. She screwed up going on Joe Rogan. Not only did she miss out on that opportunity, she literally screwed it up, made it worse.
Mark, they were so that whole Joe Rogan thing, right? They were in a spot there because Donald Trump went in and flawlessly, to borrow the word, flawlessly navigated a 3-hour conversation where he was not fatigued. And so that completely blew the lid off any claims that he's old or elderly or whatever. And so, and he does this great job. He also personalized himself with Joe Rogan. Well, Kamala and her campaign, they've got to navigate the way that they managed not to put her into that position, right? So they had to slow walk the conversations, always probably knowing she's not going to go on because she can't match it.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, on the flip side, they've got to find a way to blame Joe. But they thought they'd still be elected and they could blame him from a position of power. Instead, now you hear them coming out and weaseling their way and saying, well, Joe wouldn't come meet us. They're trying to figure out some way to have a position of power when in reality, they were terrified. It's why she was hidden for 3 weeks after the DNC. They were terrified of putting this woman out anywhere that her competency could be seen in light.
Right. That was the problem with it.
Not a flawless campaign. Yeah.
No, far from it. And that's kind of the point of this. And I know I think even some of the people sitting at this desk are effectively laughing at what she's trying to say here.
Forget the Rogan dinner. She didn't even go to, or the Rogan thing. She didn't even go to the Al Smith dinner. All she had to do was go and read off a teleprompter. Just go to the Al Smith dinner, get some business cards out and read
that
off
was her, Mark, that was her abortion thing. Her advisors had told her not to go because that's a dinner that in some way is conflated. Yeah, but it's conflated to be pro-life. And so she wasn't allowed by her advisors to go. Horrible decisions all around. Yeah. Horrible.
And that's because her advisors, probably none of them were Catholic, don't even understand what the religion means. Probably have no idea.
Like a bunch of kids? Weren't they like? Yeah.
20-year-olds.
So she hired her staff off of Reddit. Yeah.
Because that's what was told. I mean, and I've seen that in Republican campaigns before, too, to be fair.
It's at that level?
Not at that level. No, at a gubernatorial race level, though, here in Louisiana a few years ago. Yes. Not Jeff Landry's. Not that one. One that came before it.
I mean, she had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift to the Swifties. She had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that.
The Beehive? Was that a hairdo?
You could not have run a better campaign.
She just lost
for a period of time, and I think that's still true.
I mean, I don't know how you get around this. It's kind of ridiculous. It's silly to watch. I see quotes like this, and I have to play this again.
I've got a lot of friends who are Democrats, and they haven't asked me for advice. But if I did, I'd tell them, look, you just got to try harder not to suck.
I love John. We love John Kennedy down here. But yeah, here's another one from Michael Rappaport. Now, for those of you who don't know, Michael Rappaport is, I think, certifiably crazy. Hollywood actor, traditionally very left. And then he has these weird moments of quasi-sanity where I don't know. Michael, he is a weird dude. Even he's laughing about this. Good, and not because I want to see anyone lose a job, he says, but because you had an opportunity and pissed it away with short-sighted, racially weaponized, one-quarter truth garbage, and they did it on a Sunday morning when they fired her. Marjorie Taylor Greene had this to say. Good morning. MSNBC just canceled Joy Reid's show. The ad execs and board finally figured out that racism, lies, and Trump derangement syndrome will put them out of business.
You know what? I don't even know if that's the case. I think this might be window dressing. I think this is window dressing for the sale. They got to get that expense line down. They're going to do it however. Hey, Ron, how does it work with contracting, right? So they cancel her show. She still has a full price contract. They shove her to 1 a.m. She gets the Acosta treatment. They're trying to get her to quit. But what if she doesn't? What happens?
It depends on the contract. Tucker Carlson's contract was a no-cut contract, but exclusive. So Fox is still paying him, but he can't go on any other network.
Which is why they're furious that he's doing so well on YouTube.
And X. Yeah.
Yes. So it's going to depend
let that rider out
on the deal.
It's like a bad baseball contract, where 10 years later you got a player that's playing on the Mets, but he's still getting paid $10 million a year by the Astros because the way the contract works. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, except that's the base, that's the players union, and that's true for all players. Yeah. And I think it's even, actually, no, I'm not sure. I think it depends on seniority. I think in the NFL, it's true for all players, which has resulted in some really crazy outcomes, as you could imagine.
Oh, very much so. Very, very much so. I haven't had a chance because I just got tagged on this right before the show began. But I think, considering where we are right now, we've got to finish this segment with this because I've got to see what this article says. This is too good. From Variety magazine, Joy Reid's sudden MSNBC exit and how she let queer viewers down. The Joy Reid era at MSNBC is over. The liberal commentator who will be leaving her 7 p.m. weeknight show amidst a larger shakeup was perhaps the network's toughest critic of Donald Trump, delivering blistering critiques of both the president and his voters. Reid seemed to welcome controversy in a way that made her built for a contentious moment. After last year's election, for instance, she told Latino Republican voters that they, quote, own everything. Probably not a good way to put that, maybe when some of them are, apartments in Aurora, Colorado and stuff like that. But hey.
So everything, in other words, they own everything, meaning everything that happens, all the horrible things that will happen to the world are the fault of these Latino voters.
Great way to open that one and get them back, for right. Joy Reid's side, right? But they own everything that will happen to their families under Trump. The author of 3 books about politics. Could we just soak that one in for a minute? Joy Reid has written 3 books about politics. They're probably right on the shelf next to her 3 books about quantum physics. Okay,
half of the books were probably bought by USAID money.
Yes. And you're probably not joking. Probably really were. It's like, these politicians, when their books come out, the Hillary Clinton book, they get bought up by all these non-for-profits and all these political allies and all this. Oh, they're suddenly on the New York Times bestseller because one person bought 50,000 copies as a donation to the Clinton Foundation. You know, that kind of thing.
Trump Hispanic approval today, 58%, by the way.
Ooh, say that one more time.
Trump Hispanic and other race approval, it's mostly Hispanics, 58% today. 58%.
And you can feel it, by the way. That's the thing. When they try to tell you that there's a drop, you can't sense that in any other form other than them just telling you that. Everything in terms of the messaging, in terms of the way people talk at the water coolers, like everything points to that being a manufactured reality when they say it. There's no evidence to me that anybody has changed their minds, except that people actually seem more confident in the direction that America is going.
Yeah. Again, it's more gaslighting. Reid's personal story as the child of immigrants raised in Brooklyn was inspiring, and her status as a relatively rare black woman in cable news made her a magnet for both fandom and vitriol. Megyn Kelly, for instance, often delivered vituperative criticism of Reid's work.
And then, no, wait a minute, slow down.
Yeah, go ahead.
Listen to the segue there.
Yeah.
What was it that made Megyn Kelly said that? Why did Megyn Kelly vituperatively criticize Reid's work? Because Reid is the child of immigrants. And because she's a relatively rare black woman in cable news. That's what this sentence says. That's defamatory.
Yeah, speaking of somebody who may know a thing or two about law and defamatory issues, Ron.
A thing or two, I might. Yeah,
a thing or two. We might have to ask you about one of those things a little bit later if we've got time. But no, I think you're very correctly pointed that out, right? That it's another one of these articles. Barack Obama was criticized because he was black. You know, Joy Reid was criticized because she was black. Kamala Harris was criticized because she was black. And it's the same thing every time. They keep running the same old playbook, just like going back to our top story tonight. We talked about box office. You can't criticize Captain America, Brave New World because you're racist, because he's a black character. And they try to set these things up to where they want to force American audiences, or in this case, American viewers of news, or American voters in this case, to capitulate to some ridiculous narrative based on, well, you have to change the way you think because you are bad white man. And you only think this, you only don't like what this person has to say, not because you fundamentally disagree with their position, not because you have a fundamentally different set of values, but it's because you hate black people in this case, you know, and I agree. I think that's exactly what this article is trying to get across.
Hey, Valliant, let me show you something real quick in regards to this Joy Reid thing. This is so fascinating to me because there's all this talk about race and talk about all of these sort of tertiary reasons that she might be gone. Take a look at this. Is out of Adweek. For the 25 to 54 demographic, this is multiplied by 1,000, these numbers, okay? So let's go down to the ratings inside the demo. Remember, the demo is what matters to these companies because the demo constitutes the people who buy stuff. They watch the commercials, they buy the stuff, thus the ads. Here we go. Okay, so if we scroll on down and pay attention to the difference between Fox News Channel on the far left and MSNBC on the far right, which, well, that's a bit of a change, eh? But if you look down here, Joy Reid at the 7 p.m. slot versus Laura Ingraham, and I would say that Ingraham, although I'm not trying to be in any way negative towards the Ingraham angle, I would say that's probably the weakest of the shows in their primetime lineup. Again,
it is.
Not trying to diminish it. But Reid is pulling 59,000 people in the demo. 59,000.
Wow.
Ingraham is pulling 389,000. And listen, Ingram's not the strongest competitor. So Reid, Valliant, I've looked this up.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that you're beating Joy Reid on quite a few days in the last month. Like, I think that this is how bad it is. And Valliant, I got a feeling you don't have the staffing size that Reid surely must have to make sure that she goes live.
I don't have the MSNBC budget, no.
Listen, I'm convinced that you are beating her. I think you're beating her with a staff of not what she has.
I think there's a number of us out there on YouTube that are trouncing the traditional media. And if you want to go up the ladder, even look at some of MSNBC's largest shows. I mean, you look at their Jen Psaki, right? That's their big primetime 8 p.m. Eastern show, Inside Jen Psaki. And then you've got 65 on the demo there. 65,000 views or 65,000 in that core demo.
It's insane. It's not sustainable.
FNT gets that in the first 30 minutes. Friday Night Tights, okay? That's where you are. And again, that's not 65,000 people watching steadily necessarily the entire hour. That's somebody checked in and what is it? It's 5 minutes of watch, I think, on broadcast still. there's still a number there that they have to cumulatively wrap up. And again, I don't know exactly how this list is calculating because I've not seen this before you pulled it up.
Right. It could be an average. I'm not 100% sure either, but it's easy to see the comparison here and to know exactly why it is that CNN and MSNBC simply cannot be sustained under the current model.
No.
You add them together and they're like half of what Fox is pulling.
No, they're being subsidized by other activities of their owners.
Right.
We've discussed this before. They are just like the Washington Post is subsidized. The New York Times might be breaking even because of their silo model. But as media platforms, these are not sustainable businesses. And yet people in power and people with lots of money and people who do not feel any pressure from stockholders, evidently, are willing to continue this subsidization despite the fact that they're throwing good money after bad.
I think you're right. And also, Ron, it plays into the kind of conversations that we've had many times before, especially with things like Disney. You get into these multifaceted businesses. Disney puts out a movie, it bombs, and we go to the earnings call, and virtually nobody asks about it because it's not something that is a driving force. Even the most successful films that Disney has is comparably kind of a blip on the radar compared to what does drive their business, which is, years ago was live sports and especially theme parks above and beyond all. MSNBC, in the same regard, they've got the same or relatively the same costs of operation with big news studios, camera crews, live broadcast equipment, streaming equipment as Fox or as CBS or as anybody else, right? They've all got to have a studio. They've all got to have camera operators. They all have to very, very similar infrastructure to produce that. Now, the variances, of course, come in the cost of talent. But in the case of Comcast, MSNBC is even probably less, maybe a tenth of the blip on the radar that a theatrical release is for Disney compared to their whole thing. So, and I think that's a big part of it. So that basically the questions never get asked. Hey, why is MSNBC sucking so bad? Well, because they've got the regular over-the-air broadcast NBC nightly news and things like that probably have much bigger audience than MSNBC, I'd imagine. You've got CNBC in there too. But what's going to be interesting, and going back to what I said before, I think the reason they're really cleaning house right now is because, number one, Comcast is well aware these kind of cable stations that they're spinning out are largely dead weight. They are drags on the overall bottom line of big Comcast. Hey, we can push these out the door and try to revitalize them over here, and we get that problem off of our financial report, our balance sheet, and our cash flows every quarter. We look better. But they still have to fix it once it gets out the door, so I think that's why they're fixing it now. So once it gets out there and people start seeing, well, crap, if we pulled out MSNBC, look how bad this is. This thing's losing its shirt every quarter.
But really, these companies are they're such large conglomerates that they can hide so much in terms of business units and individual projects. Because keep in mind, when a Disney movie fails, it also fails on the merchandising. It reduces the value of future merchandising. It fails for all future distribution. Like, these things are hidden, and analysts are supposed to do the job of picking up on these things, but they don't, because they all the discussions we had over last year.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valliant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.